Okay, so once again, good morning and welcome to the Mood House. Today is Wednesday, January 13th, 2016. We're in our study on the life of Jacob, and this morning we'll be looking at verses 4 through 9 in chapter 33. And before I make comments, let's go ahead and read that. But before we read that, David has, I've asked him to read, after we read 33, 4 through 9, that's the text for this morning, I've asked David to read the backstory to Esau. Remember, we left Esau way back, and years and years and years, and a lifetime has passed. And I'd like for us to put, in order for us to see what's happening in 33, 4 through 9, I'd like to put it within the context of how we left Esau years and years ago. So let's read, if someone could read 33, 4 through 9, and then David, when they're finished, could you pick up with 27, 38 through 42,
30 through 42,
and then 28, 8 through 9. So with all that instruction, let's give it a shot, see how we do.
But Esau ran to meet Jacob and embraced him. He threw his arms around his neck and kissed him, and they wept. Then Esau looked up and saw the women and children. "Who are these with you?" he asked. Jacob answered, "They are the children God has graciously given your servant." Then the female servants, their children, approached, bowed down. Next Leah and her children came and bowed down. Last of all came Joseph and Rachel, and they too bowed down. Esau asked, "What's the meaning of all these flocks and herds I met?" "To find favor in your eyes, my lord," he said. But Esau said, "I already have plenty, my brother. Keep what you have for yourself."
Okay, good. Thank you, Dick. Now, David.
Okay, Esau said to his father, "Do you have only one blessing, my father? Bless me too, my father." Then Esau wept aloud. His father Isaac answered him, "Your dwelling will be away from the earth's richness, away from the dew of the heaven above. You will live by the sword, and you will serve your brother. And when you grow restless, you will throw his yoke from off your neck." Esau held a grudge against his brother because of the blessing his father had given him. He said to himself, "The days of mourning for your father are near, that I will kill my brother Jacob." When Rebekah was told that what her older son Esau had said, she sent for her younger son Jacob and said to him, "Your brother Esau is consoling himself with the thought of killing you. Now then," I was going to read it all the way through, is that right?
Stop there, and
Okay.
then now read. Now that Esau's going to kill is intending to kill his brother, and of course that's what prompted Jacob to leave and to go to Padanaram, where he spent his life. Now, David, could you pick up with 28, 8 through 8 and 9?
8, 9, okay. Esau then realized how displeasing the Canaanite women were to his father Isaac. So he went to Ishmael and married Mahalath, the sister of Nebuloth, and daughter of Ishmael, the son of Abraham, in the addition to the wives he already had.
Okay, good. So thank you all for reading. The story there in Genesis 27 was Jacob stole the blessing, and it just absolutely devastated his brother. Of course, we can understand that to the point that Esau was plotting a plan to kill his brother. That's what prompted to move Jacob from Israel, where they were, to Padanaram, and of course we've been looking at that now for several weeks. Then the last thing of significance that's said about Esau is that he knew that marrying the women outside of the family was displeasing to his father, and he went out and did it. Spite. So we have a grudge and we have spite. Intentional hurt. To bring intentional hurt through action. That is how we've left Esau. Well, we picked up now with Esau this morning as a different kind of Esau. The text is so moving. When Esau ran to meet him, Jacob, he embraced him. He fell on his neck. He kissed him, and they wept. Notice he ran. He met him. He embraced him. He fell on his neck, and he kissed him, and they wept. You can see it. Two brothers coming together, and Esau's running to meet his brother. Jacob's not running. It's not both running. Esau is coming to his brother and to embrace him, and they wept. Beautiful, beautiful scene right there. And that's where I'd really like to capture this morning. We'll get back to it. Review. Last week we talked about Jacob, and we're grappling with this whole idea of transformation. He has turmoiled over this meeting, this reunion, and what it was about to mean. He is filled with shame and remorse for what he had done to his brother years and years and years ago. He's been carrying this thing this whole time. And of course, he's in turmoil of what this is going to mean. And he cried out to God, and of course that then brought on the wrestling match, and we've talked all about that. And then last week, we talked about the wounding and the dawning, and we've made a lot of correlation there with death and then resurrection, and we've talked about a lot of different things. Yes, Carl?
I was going to say, along with this was Esau's tremendous anger towards his brother Jacob. So Jacob, left the land. We all know that, but that's pretty.
But this was a long time ago.
A long time ago.
Yeah.
But his hatred towards him with that murder threat must have been pretty severe. I mean, it's not, I'm going to kill you. I will kill you.
Yeah. So, so we can understand Jacob's turmoil.
Yeah.
Things just don't go away. They just keep coming back over and over. If things are not dealt with in our lives, guys, it just keeps coming back. So, what was confusing, or what's this whole question mark and enigma of the text is, after Jacob last time had this wonderful encounter, this transformational encounter with holy God, why he acted out the way he did last week. That's what we were talking about last week. And so with the conclusion of what I've come to is that this whole idea, we think of transformation as perfection. Well, it's not. But one thing is true about Jacob from the text, is that he's willing for the first time to release control. And that's why I've got this little picture of him on his knees. He's become a man on his knees, seeking out God. Whereas Jacob is, in that sense, he's a different kind of man. So that's the backdrop. We've got these two brothers, years of history, and now this reunion coming together. Huge amount of past and energy is being brought to this moment. So I've come up with a question that I'll pose to you, and we're not gonna discuss it here, but it's gonna set the tone for this reunion. And because in all of our lives, we've done things. I would think probably all of us have some level of regret of things that either we have done or that things that have been done to us. And I came up with this question this week: is which do you think, given our two characters in the story, which do you think is the bigger challenge to overcome? Holding a grudge towards someone and working through that in a healthy way, or to overcome a sense of shame of something that I have done and working through in both cases, guys, it's forgiveness. In one case, it's releasing and letting go what has happened to me to be able to live a healthy life and to let it go, to forgive. In the other case, it's a forgiving of oneself about something that I have done and working through the necessary details of that in order to live free and not bound by that. In both cases, it's forgiveness is the solution, but in one, it's a grudge, retribution, revenge, getting even. The other is shame to oneself that I'm not worthy, I can't raise my head, I cannot get beyond this, I'm just not with it, I'm just not good enough. That's a really, to me, that is a really stimulating question. Charles, you got something?
I was going to answer the question.
Oh, you're going to answer it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Or are you ready for that?
I'd love to hear what you have to say, and I think everybody would. So,
Well, just reading that, the first thing I thought, holding a grudge, that's a big deal. But the more I think about it, that overcoming a sense of shame is even harder.
and well, why do you think so?
That's a good question. That was just my gut feeling.
Well, I'll be real truthful with you. I agree with you. I think overcoming one's shame is a bigger challenge. They're both big. Any other comments on that? Why, what's the next question is, why is that so? Why do we intuitively, like Charlie says, why do we think that? I think that, you think that, and maybe others. Yes, Carl.
I struggle with that as married to my wife. I believe it's because when you're dealing with another person, you have the opportunity to go to them and ask them for forgiveness, and then you can hear them, I forgive you. But with yourself, it's pretty hard to hear somebody say, I forgive you.
Yeah.
Unless you say it out loud to yourself, I forgive myself for this. And that's, to me, that's a real struggle.
I think you've really hit it, Carl, because it also, that reinforces the power that every human being has in order to release other people's into a new level of healing. The power of pronouncing forgiveness on another person releases them.
And I wonder if it's connected to that verse in the New Testament that says, go and confess your sins to another brother that he may be forgiven. And in our shame, we try to hide that sin.
Yeah, we try to hide it, we manage it, we numb it. There's, it's difficult. To be able to read the scriptures about forgiveness. We go to God and we ask God 100 times to forgive us for this, but we still live in shame. And to be able to receive what God has said in his scriptures, it takes a step. It takes a step. Yes, anybody else?
Yeah, the shame of the cross is very powerful. Several scriptures. you know, the man who hangs upon a tree is the shame of that,
Yeah.
the curse of that.
Mhm. Yes, yeah. Yeah,
It's
that's
easier
very
to
true.
deal with, I think Carl alluded to that, it's easier to deal with somebody else as the forgiveness of the grudge as dealing with yourself.
It really is, yeah.
We're pretty tough to
Mhm.
deal with.
We're really tough on ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we've talked about that, and that's just something to hold in tension while we work through this. Excuse me. So the flow of the text is this, and it moves from left to right. I see nothing but pure, unadulterated love from Esau. Abandonment. No reservation whatsoever. In contrast to how Jacob is handling this. Esau is the aggressor. Esau is the one who is doing the running and the embracing and the kissing and the weeping. Now it says they both wept, sure. But truly he is the initiator here. And love, at least from my perspective, that's what's being seen. And this love is being down focused in a concentrated form to a reunion. And I look at verse 4. See, verse 4, reunion. I've got it concentrated in this beautiful picture of two brothers meeting and reuniting once again. That's how I see this flow of love moving down into reunion in verse 4. And then after the weeping, a period of time, and I can see Esau's eyes with tears coming down. He after burying his head on his brother's shoulder, and the two of them in this beautiful embrace, he lifts his eyes and he speaks. And the first thing he says in verse 5 is he lifted his eyes and he saw the women and the children, and he said, question over here. After the love and the reunion and the embrace, right over here, the first question he asked in verse 5 is, well, who are these? Who are these? Do you get the feeling? And then he goes, the children whom, and then of course Jacob, I sense, of course I'm seeing it a certain way, guys. I'm seeing caution on the part of Jacob. I'm seeing caution. And of course, this all goes back to the question, which is easier? I see abandonment and love on the part of Esau. And of course, in my view, he has worked through his issues. I don't see any grudge here. Do you? I see nothing but warm embrace. Who are these with you? So he said, the children whom God has graciously given your servant. He's talking in the third person here. Then the maids came near, group one. Group one, come forward. Then group two, Leah, in verse 7, likewise with her children. And then finally at the end of verse 7, afterward Joseph and Rachel came. And everybody's now bowed down to Esau. And then the second question, right here, here's the flow. And it's basically like this. I've seen your family now. I've just got this question. What was your intent with all of the gifts? Why all the gifts? That comes last in the exchange. What was your intent? Now, we're gonna hit on this next time more, but Jacob's honest response. Here is the transformational piece in this man's life. He didn't fabricate a story, but in his mode of cautiousness, which I give him grace. Given the text that David read, his last remembrance is, my brother's going to kill me. He's cautious. But he says, again, I show this as a release of the need to control. The reason I did it, brother, or the reason I did this, is to find favor in your sight. He's putting himself at a lower position to his brother. I think that's very honest. I think it's very beautiful and very well stated. He is humbled out, taking his position, stating, being in a sense defensive, being cautious, but yet being honest. I love it. But Esau said, verse 9, I have plenty. Please, take it back. I don't need your gifts. Well, he didn't say it like that, but we don't need any stuff. So that's the flow of the text. And what I would like you to see is it flows from left to right. The love is focusing in on that beautiful text in verse 4, that verse, and then out of that comes two questions. One is, who are these? A welcoming question. And then the second question is, but I do have one question. What was your intent with all the gifts, brother? Given this. Okay. I want to contrast that to what I would call the human default mode. Human default mode. To look at our common way of interaction, I would cast it like this. The questions come first. The last question on what we see Esau asking is, I believe, the first question in our default mode as human beings. What was your intent? It's interrogative. It's to find out, are you worthy to love? Okay? I need to profile you, categorize you, in order for you to fit into my world, then I may love you. Do you see the contrast, at least from my head, what I see? It's probing the motive. We probe the motive. What were you thinking? Question 2 is that once we get the information about probing the motive, then we can fit you into my categories of thought so that I can, because it's about control. Now, Jacob is a man who is releasing control, which I think is a beautiful thing. I'm just proposing, I see a wonderful picture of love, and then comes the questions. My head goes contrast human default mode, which I believe we question first in order to feel safe. We're protected, we're guarded. The reunion then happens if I find that you're safe, and then out of that can flow a level of love. Okay, that's just no extra charge for that. The driving force. The driving force. Why do you think Esau, what is driving this abandonment and this freedom that we see so beautifully in this text? What is it? What is driving this thing? And I think it's the word plenty. Esau is working from a position of plenty. Yes?
Which he, quote unquote, has achieved without his father's blessing.
Yes.
I did it my way.
Okay. Okay,
So
yeah.
what I'm saying is he's confident in himself.
Well, he is certainly stating that he has no need. If he were still holding the grudge, here's the idea. If he were still holding the grudge, he would welcome. He would welcome those gifts. He didn't need the gifts. He didn't need anything from his brother. All he needed was an embrace. He was satisfied. Now his motive could still in question, but this whole idea of plenty, he's plenty, he's full, in contrast to empty, want. Carl.
I would have just another thought. Esau's response as he met his brother Jacob, to me, shows that he has been struggling with this death threat for years and years and years. And now as he sees his brother coming, he runs towards him, he falls on his neck and he kisses him to be relieved of the threat that he made towards his brother. I perhaps think that has been weighing on him for years and years and years. He's lived in this land, he's gained all this stuff, but it's pretty empty because there is no family around to share with. You know, family is so important to each one of us, to have our families close to us where we can be related to them and interchange with them. But all these years have gone by and he's been empty. He's been, I wish I would have never said that. I wish I would have never said that. So perhaps this getting forgiveness is really high on his list.
Well, it certainly shows. Do you see a sense of abandonment with Esau? I would think that if he had grudge still, he would have approached his brother entirely different. The whole exchange with a gift. I see that whatever has occurred in Esau's life is a healthy sense that he's worked through it. He was just glad to see his brother.
Yeah, he really wanted.
Yeah, just, oh man, this is wonderful.
What a relief.
Yeah. And what I'm attaching is how he's able to do that. He's coming from a place of plenty. But then that begs the question, what is plenty? Is it stuff? You know, or is it something else? And so that's the next slide. Regarding plenty, is it about acquiring more? Yes, he has, as David has suggested, he's become a self-made man. He's done this. He's worked hard. He's acquired things. Or is it about awakening to? This is where my suggestion is. In America, guys, we live in a place of plenty, but there is never, probably not any other, I don't know statistically, but what I sense around me, there is a huge amount of want. Want in the context of plenty. We get up in the morning, we have a hot shower. Some of us, some of you. I shower in the evening. A warm breakfast, a nice, beautiful place to be. We can go out, we can start our car and the heater works, and we come down here and we meet comfortably. We have plenty, guys. But yet we live in a culture that is punctuated by want and need. In an internal unrest sense. There is a want, there is a striving that what I have is not fulfilling the want within. And I'd like to suggest that we can be in a place of plenty and be in a place of want. I think, my opinion, for what it's worth, is that Esau was a man who worked through his issues. In all these years of silence that have, from chapter 28, where he left in spite, that if he would have continued down that same path, we would have had a different exchange now in chapter 33. But I'm arguing from silence, but I think he worked through his issue, and that word plenty means that he came to an awakening of what he had. He was satisfied. He didn't need anything else. He was whole within, and so he could be abandoned in love. The two correlate. I'm taking his outside actions and say, well, what is his motive? What is driving this? I think he's in a place of plenty. And we can be in a place of extreme physical want, but we can be in a place of plenty. Yes.
The perfect example of that is the church of Laodicea. Jesus described this. You feel that you are rich and you need no one's help.
There you go.
And yet you are pitiful and naked and blind.
Uh-huh.
And it's really a picture of the United States too at this particular time.
Okay.
We are rich and don't know how bad off we are.
Mm-hmm. Well, that is my position on this. And in contrast, you can take a very simple, there are people, most of the people on this planet today are, I would say, in some degree in a place of want for physical needs. But they can be the most happy and content people because in their minds, they're in a place of being blessed and plenty. We all have heard stories, and maybe some of us have seen that. So to wrap it up, and because I talked way too long, we won't have time to do this as a group, but your takeaway today is this. After you leave here at some point, you can do it if you want to or not. On a piece of paper, write down or draw a line, and on the left-hand side, write the word want or unrest, and on the right-hand side, rest, signifying plenty, rest. I think Jacob or Esau is at rest inwardly in his spirit. And then plot yourself, put on the line where you would plot yourself in regard to this idea of plenty. And I'm not talking about your bank account, your checking account balance or your IRA or whatever, but it's about where you are inwardly in a state of plenty. To the degree that you're in a state of plenty. And what is signified by that is how much want is there. Good way to ask that question, to pose it a different way, is, one way to answer this question is to ask yourself, what person or circumstance in my life has to change in order for me to be at rest? What person or circumstance, what needs to change for me to be at a place of rest? What needs to change? And then use that data that you get to plot yourself. What degree of rest am I living at? Am I dwelling at? Am I at a high degree, or am I still in a place of tension and want at this stage in life? Okay, well, that's where we'll cover a lot of ground today. We'll pick up next time. Yes?
It has to be a parenthetical in your question. What person